take a look at some of these graphs. So here's the graph for y equals sine of x. You'll see, again, it starts at 0, goes up to 1, comes back to 0, goes down to -1, and back to 0. This, as soon as it starts to repeat the pattern, that is a period. So how long was that period? Well, if you look, it started at 0, and then it starts repeating at 2 pi, which is pretty typical, right? Just like a unit circle. The amplitude is the distance from the center of our line here to the top or to the bottom. So if you look, the middle is 0, the highest we went is 1, the lowest we went is -1. So at most, we're going 1 away from the center. So our amplitude is 1. So if you're ever given a graph and maybe it's not, the middle's not at 0, what you can do is do the highest number, the highest part of the graph, minus the lowest part of the graph, find the difference between them, and split that. So if there are 6 points between them, right, between the highest and lowest, cut that in half, the amplitude would be 3. Okay? All right. Now look at this graph. This is the graph for y equals 2 sine x. So if you look, here's 2 pi again. It looks very similar. Except if you look, the highest point here is up to 2, then it comes back to 0. Then the lowest point is -2. So the amplitude is twice as big, right? Because this one only had an amplitude of 1. Over here we have an amplitude of 2. So what part of the graph did the 2 impact? The amplitude went from 1 to 2. So it became twice as tall. All right, let's try another one. Looking at this graph, y equals sine 2x, very similar. The other one was just y equals 2 sine x. This is y equals 2x. So let's look at kind of our graph, and here's where we started. Now here's 2 pi. Now if you look, we have one period right there, or one cycle. And we have 2 cycles. So we have twice as many cycles in that period. Or we can say that the period is half as much. So it affected the period. Half as long. Because this graph started repeating at 1 pi instead of 2 pi. Oh, interesting. Look at this one. Oh, wow. So if you look here, it starts at 0, great. As soon as it starts repeating, is at 4 pi. Same amplitude. It goes up 1, it goes down 1, but it starts repeating at 4 pi. So that would be our period. Given this is sine, what do you think the equation of this graph? I don't know. Well, let's see. This one, it was half as long, right, when there was a 2 there. So this time, it's 4 times as long. 2 was half as long, like 1 over 2. So if this is 4 times as long, oh, maybe we'll write like y equals sine of 1 over 4x. Oh, actually, the sine was only 2 times as long because a typical sine is, or a typical period is 2 pi. So this is only twice as long. So we'll say y equals sine of 1/2 x. Cool. Let's get into those cosines.